Welcome everybody to episode 19 of the Art of Marketing podcast webinar series with your friends at Applied Art. Today we're joined with our regulars, George Christ, one of our partners, and Shannon Quinn, our business development manager. No Mark today, but he's with us in spirit. And my name's Ryan and I'm in marketing. And today we're talking about the 10 mistakes of virtual events and the ways you can solve them. We're kind of excited about this one because we wanted to give you guys some more pointed tips and a little more structure if you guys are trying to take your event virtual or figure out if your live event can be taken online and how to navigate that process. So one of the things that we're seeing too, and we've talked about this in other webinars, is this kind of spiking trend of events going virtual just because of, the coronavirus pandemic and all those types of things. One of the things that a lot of people are asking too is how do we replicate some of these live experiences in an online format in a way that's different and unique. So hopefully we can give you guys some tactics for that today. So getting right into it here, number one on our list of 10 mistakes is overcomplicating the user experience. So what do you guys think is some of the ways that people can make this too much of an issue or overcomplicate things for a user's experience?
Well, I know from our experience that we had used for a certain client like a double opt-in, where you would register and then you'd get a link and then you'd follow that link and sign in. It's important to have some way for them to be identified so you can have analytics on the actual visitors rather than just anonymous. So we discovered a few different ways to do that. But really, one of the ways that was actually the easiest was kind of encoding their user information in a customized link to the event. And then what we do is we check that link when people come in to see if their ID is there. And then if it's not, we just ask them to sign in. If you're going to a meeting, you need to know who somebody is. And so that streamlined the whole process. So if you get your customized link, if your event is one where you can send out an invitations to specific people, that really makes it easy. You just follow the link, you're in, and then we also are able to capture the data on you to see what your interests are. So I'd agree. I think making that simple, just get in there. The other thing, the user experience is if you have a multi-day thing, to have your own customizable agenda. So Ryan, you would have, here's all the things you're interested in. Here's what time your breakout session's going to be. Here's what time your educational session is, and here's the link for it, and that's customized for you. So you don't have to, look through a complicated list of things. The other thing is, if you have a networking area, somehow you need to collect the information on the individual users, and some of that can be done ahead of time so that the actual day of the experience, it's pretty seamless. Have you been to either one of you that seem to be a lot of unnecessary steps?
For me personally, it's been like there's some that are clunkier with the login, and for whatever reason, if you get that clunkiness right out of the gate, it makes it just, you're not as excited to go to the event. So I think that's more the streamlining that user experience is like you said, making the sign-in process easy, already having them registered, and then they just log in and they're ready to go. So
yeah.
One of the sales webinars that I've tried to attend in the last couple of weeks, I didn't register in advance. So joining day of was complicated. And I actually wasn't able to get in. And I even reverted back to the original email invite, and it said you could register day of, but it wasn't working for me. And I was bummed out about that. So I think that's something that needs to be considered, is how you handle day of if they haven't pre-registered.
Yeah, that's a horrible experience. There you have somebody that wants to go to your event and they can't get in.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So mistake number two that we were seeing also is the long slide heavy presentations. So it's just a lot of, as you can imagine, in a in-person event, if you're just sitting there and the person's reading from the slides and talking, and it's snoozeville, right? So I think that's kind of an interesting thing, is a lot of these presentations are just, probably for a lack of a better term, just lack of planning. So that's why they're reading from presentations. But interested in what your guys' feedback is on ways that people can spice that up a little bit from just having slides.
I would say if it's boring, and if your presentation is boring in real life, it's twice as boring in virtual space.
Well, and just like in everything that we do, content is king. So you need to know who your audience is, and your content needs to be engaging and interesting. You've got to, especially virtually, it's so easy to multitask and to turn my camera off and go do something else. If you want to hook my attention, that's got to be what your content is built to do.
One of the things that we've started doing is working with the presenters, because there's a lot of these people who are quite comfortable standing up in front of an audience and going through their presentation. But it's different when you're sitting in your office or your home or your bedroom in front of your laptop, and you don't have that sort of energy from the audience, and you're 2 layers removed. So really, we've kind of gone to part of this whole preparation is really to work with the people to get them to understand how this experience is different, how you might structure your presentation, because honestly, people are easily distracted. At a live event, you don't have the distractions. You're sitting there in your seat. But at a virtual event, you do have a lot of distractions. So, one thing I read a long time ago, and this was based on some science, is that you need to, every 10 minutes, do something completely different. You need to completely shift the topic. You need to wake people up with something, because that scientifically, about 10 minutes was as long as the attention span was. And this is true if you were teaching a live class or doing any sort of presentation. So that's really not a bad rule of thumb. I think the other thing is stories. Instead of explain, present an interesting story. Tell it in an interesting way. Everyone likes to hear about it done in a story form. And I know both of you are big proponents of storytelling.
And video, the power of video. So I would much rather watch a video that communicated what you're trying to get me to understand than to have someone read to me, which I can't stand, bullet points on a PowerPoint.
Yeah, right. Yeah, reading the PowerPoint bullets when you can clearly read it yourself.
Right.
That's about the worst.
That's kind of a pet peeve. I don't like to be read to. I got it.
Absolutely. One of the next ones too was really the lack of rehearsals. So I think, sadly enough, Mark's not on here. He could probably speak in great depth about the importance of rehearsals, but definitely with anything, if you don't practice it enough before it's game time, you're not going to perform as well as you could. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the different types of rehearsals, especially with a virtual event. It's a little bit different compared to, say, a live one.
Well, yeah, technology can be challenging. There's bound to be quirks and kinks that you have to work out, and we can't control all of that, but practice, we can work out a lot of them.
Yeah, if Mark were here, he'd say exactly that. Practice, rehearsal. And that's true, and that's especially true in the virtual environment. If you have an issue, I just can't run over there, Shannon, and fix your mic. I cannot adjust your camera. I cannot, I'm very limited on the way that I can interact. And this is a different environment than people are just getting used to. I'm not sure when's my turn to talk. When am I up next? How should I interact? Where are my slide presentations coming from? And if you're not running it, who changes the slides and who cues up the videos? You can't. People went through this early on, were happy doing a Zoom or a GoToMeeting, but now for an event, they want something more polished. They want an event. This needs to be more like television than it does just everybody on chit-chatting on their computers. So,
and you know, one of the prospects I've been talking with the last couple of weeks is that's what she's most nervous about. She is not technically savvy and wants to make sure that their event for their association goes seamlessly, and she can't get her head around it, which is why it's so important to partner with somebody that can. But it's unsettling. It's so almost debilitating and paralyzing her to the degree that they're contemplated not doing anything at all. And it's, you know, building that trust to say, you don't have to cancel it. We'll take care of it, is the conversation that we're having.
well, and that's a good point for her. If she would go through a few rehearsals, and she'd, you know, it's the fear of the unknown.
Right.
And going through a few rehearsals and practicing, it's like, oh, all right, this is easy, and here's how I do this, and here's how I get a cue to do that. And yeah.
There's people that, I mean, they have had their first Zoom meeting ever when all of this started. So we're dealing with a lot of people that don't work in this space daily, and they're having to adapt.
Well, and we encountered something just the other day where two people were in the same room right next to each other on two separate laptops, and the mics and the audio from each other were interfering with the one lady's audio. And so without, you know, having a rehearsal to figure that out and remind you, you'd never know. There's just so many unexpected things.
Yeah.
Or, you know, what's your bandwidth? It may be fine now, but, you know, it used to be at 5 o'clock when all the kids, or 3 o'clock when they came home from school. Then that bandwidth goes away. So that's such important in this virtual space. It's even more important than in a live presentation, I think.
Well, and I think the show flow too, that kind of a rehearsal is really important because, and I know that we work with clients ahead of time to help determine what makes the most sense, because that level of preparation is a much smoother experience and not so disjointed.
Yes, very true.
Absolutely. The fourth mistake that we've been seeing a lot of people making is not really, I guess, for lack of a better term, not being able to articulate and see the value in what they're charging for attendees and also for vendors and sponsors. So, Shannon, maybe you can kind of glean some information on how do you illustrate that value to your sponsors and your vendors if you're reaching out, trying to organize an event?
Well, and I think the people that are hosting the event, whatever that is, it starts with them. And that means they really have to buy into the possibility that this can work just like a live event or a live expo, a live trade show. They have to be sold first. And then it's up to us to educate them on how to monetize it, so that you're really give some thought to the sponsors. Use a platform where a sponsor can be featured in a unique way at a different price point. That maybe that comes with a 3D booth and they'll pay a little more for that. You can't be afraid to sell it to them just like it was a live event. And I think that's where people are trying to get their head around, how do we do that? Folks don't think, you know, it's like, well, isn't this a glorified Zoom meeting? Why would I charge for that? Not if it's done right. It doesn't have to be that way. And you've got the potential to do it. So you have to figure out what's important to them. In person, the branding potential that comes with a virtual event lives longer than a 10 by 10 booth space. You've got one chance for that level of interaction, and doing it virtually, things can be recorded. They can be viewed later. You can charge for that content to be available later. It's very different. So you just have to look at it through a different lens than a live event.
And what we've found too is that with the pandemic, vendors are struggling to figure out ways to contact their prospects. And, you know, you're not taking them to lunch, you're not having one-on-one meetings. A lot of your prospects are working from home. They're not checking their voice messages. Frankly, I think vendors are willing to pay. They're obviously saving money on their live events, but I think they're willing to pay quite a bit to have the opportunity to interact with their prospective customers. There's just the other avenues are gone. And then to address something that you commented on earlier is, yeah, offer valuable content worth paying for.
Absolutely.
Just don't have a meeting. I'll get interesting speakers, provide interesting content, make it worth people's time. Because if it's not, then yeah, you probably shouldn't have a meeting. You shouldn't
Yeah, they're
have a
not
conference.
they're not gathering pamphlets and brochures. So put those online. Let that be downloadable. Make it a white paper. Have content that people are gonna be interested in and click on. And then you'll be able, the analytics, which I know we'll talk to, you'll find out what they were interested in. And now it's a warmer lead to follow up and execute on.
Absolutely. One of the next ones that we were going to talk about, number 5, was using the platform that is designed for events specifically. We've seen a lot of people that are saying, well, can't I just do it with Zoom? That's kind of like the default, like the 2 phrases of 2020 that we keep hearing is, you're on mute and can't I just do it with Zoom? So maybe we can talk a little bit about how do you find a platform that is robust enough to do all the different things you want to do with an event compared to just trying to use Zoom for everything, even if it doesn't fit.
Well, it just so happens I know where you can get one of those.
Right.
She said shamelessly.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If you're just having a meeting, Zoom or GoToMeeting is fine. That's all you're having, a bunch of people, somebody's talking. If you're having an event where or trying to replace a live event with a virtual event, a lot of the reasons that people go to a live event is the networking opportunities. So you need to provide some way to have that same level of networking available virtual. For vendors, if there's a vendors area, a trade show thing, you need to be able to provide the opportunity for them to interact. People want to find out about vendors, and vendors want to talk to people. So this is a great way to get them all together, and they can compare and contrast and talk back and forth. Shannon, you and I were talking, nice thing about a virtual trade show is every vendor area is right in the middle of the floor. You're not stuck in some booth around the corner out of the flow of traffic. And really there's no limit to the number of vendors that you can have because you can search, you can filter them. There's plenty of opportunity. You also want one that's a platform that's robust and reliable too. And I think, all the other features, the ability to record the presentations and make them available offline during the course of the event. But, so people, if they missed one or wanted to go to a particular educational session, to have that available. And the thing that you don't get with a meeting is the analytics. Who visited, where did they go, how many people visited my booth at a vendor, what were they interested in, how can I reach out to them or provide a way for them to reach out to me. Those are the things that you get with a platform, an event platform, that you don't get just with a Zoom meeting.
And the flexibility of the platform, I think, is really critical because not everybody's going to need every feature and benefit that every platform has to offer. So I want it to fit my need. I don't want to buy something and say, well, this booth, this vendor area isn't for me. All I really care about is networking. So trying to, not shoehorn your way into a solution that doesn't align with what you're trying to accomplish is a lousy thing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the value of the networking because that's something that I miss terribly being in sales. Hard to do, but one of the areas, at least on our platform, what I love about it is I have an opportunity to write a bio. I spend some time, again, content is king, to describe what I do and my likes and dislikes, whatever. You get to know that person a little bit and you capture that information. Even at a live conference that I've gone to, that's difficult to do because people are so easily distracted with other folks walking by and, oh, hey, I got to go, I got to catch so-and-so. Virtually, you have a chance to filter by industry, by category, who you're interested in, get to know them a little bit, reach out, ask to schedule a meeting, follow up, follow them on social media if you're so inclined. So I think it's almost more personal than it is trying to catch somebody traipsing around a conference hall.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, we've all had that experience. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to this person, but oh, I saw them over there. No, they were here. No, I think they've gone for lunch.
Well, and the worst too is if you're having a great conversation with someone, but you forget to get their card, or they have a situation where they take off, and then you're like, oh, I never got their name, and now I have no way to contact them. Where with Network Harry, you can just do that at any
Absolutely. Yeah, the networking section is really, really critical. But again, it's only as good as the content you put in it.
Yeah, and I think, people underestimate the ability to do that. The other thing that we found in talking to people, the attendance at a virtual event is actually, it's averaging greater than their live event. In some cases, as much as twice as many people will attend the virtual event as the live event. So that's a really great opportunity to re-engage with some of your members that may not have the time or resources to go to live.
Yeah, it's a huge cost savings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most events anymore we were talking to, it's like people are used to spending at least $1,000 if they got to fly and get a hotel and fly back and food costs and everything. It's, especially if a business is footing that bill for their employees to go and learn, it's a lot more justifiable to do a virtual experience, and they can still be at the office if they need to, or working from home, or wherever they're at. So
if I could just figure out how to virtually play in a golf tournament, I would be happy. That's the one thing I'm missing.
Oh, you know what? There are ways to do that too, Shannon. You may have to play on your computer, but you could play in a golf tournament.
Need a golf simulator.
Yeah,
that's right. That's what's next.
Because with some of that too, one of the problems we were seeing with that networking piece was giving people enough time to network. With some of these events too, we're seeing people just don't, they're structuring the flow of the event to just continue to present information to the people, so they have no time to connect to. Because and most of us would probably argue too that the networking is what most people pay to go to those events for. They want access to other people in their industries too.
Well, and I was talking to somebody else the other day, and they said, well, one of the reasons a lot of people go is all the free stuff that they get, or the drawings or whatever. And you can still do that if vendors are providing prizes, random drawings, silent auctions. All of that stuff is still available to you. And honestly, people are used to having packages show up on their door now, so that's not a problem either.
Absolutely. One of the next things that we'd seen a lot of folks struggle with is organizers trying to do all of the tasks by themselves. So they're, buying a platform subscription. They're trying to build the websites and trying to get the people, do everything, herd the cats, every single piece of it that goes into it. And it can be really overwhelming. So what are some of your guys' advice for trying to avoid some of that stress and headache that comes with that?
I think it's all about choosing the right event partner that's done this before, that is familiar with live events and how it needs to translate into the virtual world. You've got to choose the right partner. You don't have to take it all on themselves. You don't have to be technically savvy. That's why you select the right people to partner with. And, if somebody wants to, hey, I've handled registration for years and I'm comfortable doing that, great, then go ahead and do that. You don't need it. But if it's something that's overwhelming you, we've done it before and we can help you make that happen. So it's just, a bite at a time, but it starts with choosing the right partner. Don't you agree, George?
I agree. If you are if this is low value to you, if it's not important to your organization, then fine, go find the cheapest way to do it. However, if you're trying to replace an annual meeting where you maybe, had an important piece of your revenue come from, if you're trying to work with prospective customers that you're inviting in for an event, then you really need it polished. And from our experience on doing this for a while, there are a lot of gotchas. I mean, we're just going through the top 10. You know, we've learned a lot too as transitioning to all these virtual platforms. But yeah, there's just too many things that you need to know. I mean, a normal event, you can deal with the hotel, you can deal with the ballroom, you can deal with the catering, you can deal with the AV. Now you have all the AV all of a sudden becomes very complicated. There's all the audio. There's how do I get the sound to play in my video? Well, this particular platform doesn't allow the sound from the video, so you should have picked something else. And how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you integrate chat? How do you build the vendor area? Yeah, it's just, it is, there's a lot of complexity. Sure. And that's just the platform. And really there's probably more complexity in just working with the presenters and getting things coordinated and figuring out the show flow and getting all the breakout rooms set up. That's really a huge part of it.
For sure. One of the big things that's it's almost more powerful on virtual than it is for live, because you can actually track the analytics and the behavior of your attendees. So George, you mentioned earlier in the beginning of this presentation, we were talking about people, once they are registered, we can track a lot of that information. So maybe we can talk about some of the value, like why would anybody even want to know what everyone's doing? And is that a little bit too creepy in some people's eyes?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's, if I'm a vendor and I'm paying, I want to know who comes to my booth. You know, in the real world, you'd come up and I'd be able to read your name tag. So this is nothing that's creepy about it. And I would like to know, I can sit and see what kind of things you look at in the booth. The same here. I want to know who comes. That's the value I get. I'm here to get leads and talk to customers and find out about them. So I'd like to reach out to people and be able to continue a dialogue. I think for the event sponsors, it's important, you know, how many people attended this breakout session. Oh, there was a lot of interest in this topic, you know, that is important to members that we didn't realize. So there's just a lot of really useful data if you actually capture it and utilize it. Now, if you have a marketing automation like HubSpot or Pardot or some of those, you can integrate that into platforms as well. So that will feed the data right back to your existing CRM or Salesforce or something like that. So it's all, you know, I mean, we're in the age of data and building data around our consumers so we can learn their preferences. And really the goal is it's not being creepy, but it's trying to be more relevant to them. It's trying to find out what you want, Shannon, so I can help you solve your problems.
Well, and as a vendor in like a 2D vendor booth where there's 8 spots available for you to display content, I want to know, were you more inclined to watch my video or read a document that I had downloaded? Is it what content did you bite on? Because that warms it up for a future post-event conversation, which is just as important as all the pre-planning and the event itself. What you do post-event, every conference I've ever gone to, that's where the real work begins, is all of the follow-up. And so I would love to know that you watched my video twice, or, you know, what content you looked at. And if I was marketing a product and I maybe had a video or a brochure, I'd want to know which one sparked interest in you. And that would help me know that, okay, well, maybe this one wasn't so popular. I got to do something different with that. They're obviously looking for different information. It's a way to really provides a lot of insights if you do it right.
Absolutely. And even Mark will tell you too, if he was here, a lot of those live in-person booths, they were putting just as much, if not more, tracking information and technology in there, like cameras, laser triggers for how many people go in and out, the badge scanning, like they were doing all this in live events already. So just,
yeah, he was doing the heat mapping in a couple of events. So yeah, you're being tracked one way or the other.
Right.
Yeah, we're tracking you right now. I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's super interesting. And I think especially in terms of proving value to your vendors and your sponsors. You can show them how many people were on their page. That'll help just kind of keep more of them for the next year. And then also just to see how many people are actually engaged, because there might be some booths that get no traffic. And yeah, that sucks to see that number, but you can say, well, maybe it's because this vendor wasn't relevant to our event. Maybe our attendees don't care about this type of person, or their header image was terrible and it didn't attract anybody to come in, or whatever it is. You can glean that information from them.
And Ryan, that's there's a really important point about choosing the right vendors, because virtually, when you're at a live event, you can dismiss the relevance of a vendor and walk on by. But virtually, you really don't want that distraction. You don't want to waste that prime real estate on the screen with somebody that has nothing to offer your audience.
Right. And then you can track that, at a live event, you don't know, you put the poor person that pulled the straw for the corner booth that's behind the bathrooms that no one even sees,
Right.
And the organizers aren't keeping track and tabs on who's going where for those types of things, unless it's some, big elaborate expo. So.
And I think that was number 9, right? Following up with the attendees. Yeah.
Yep. So just trying to keep in front of people. And then also, obviously you can learn a lot from just asking people about, send them an email and saying, hey, how was the experience? If they spent 8 hours in your event, it's pretty likely they would give you 30 seconds to write a quick response. So those are really great people to learn a lot from, as well as just like improve for the next year. So finding the right pieces that you can do to do better for next year. Because especially all the people we're talking to now, like, yes, because of the pandemic, they have to go virtual, but a lot of people are talking about years down the line where we'd like to have a hybrid event where it's some piece online, some piece in person. So this is going to be really important to kind of learn and grow it, because it's going to become an increasing piece of the industry for sure. So.
Well, and I think too, if you're in that one segment of, you're an association or something like that, associations typically struggle with providing value to their members, making that value obvious to them. And so they're always looking, and we work with a few associations, and we're always looking for ways for them to demonstrate their value. Obviously, a virtual event's a good demonstration of that. Follow up from that event, and you can take and build on that for the next 6 months by providing content and things related to that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm even talking to somebody that is looking at doing one of these events, and they were talking about, their people for continued education need the hours, so they're going to have to do something like this. But they're like, if they're going to do it, let's make it as exciting and interesting and engaging as we can, because rather than sit through your 8 hours of Con Ed half asleep at your desk, like, we'd rather have it more of an engaging experience. So I think that's the other piece of it too, is like, depending on whatever reasons get you in the door to go to an event that's virtual, how do you keep them interested and make them talk about it and go back to work and say, hey, this event was super cool. So our last tip, which we've kind of alluded to throughout the whole thing, which is just finding the right platform and the right partner to work with. So Shannon, I know you talked about kind of the reasoning behind that, but really what's the purpose of having a good partner to help kind of weed through this new endeavor for a lot of these people that have never done an event online before?
You don't know what you don't know, and it's overwhelmingly stressful to try to figure it out on your own. The best thing to do is partner with an event partner that's done it before and understands the layers of complication and can be there to, hold your hand and get you through it. Because once you understand it and are comfortable with how it actually functions, it'll be much easier, much less overwhelming. So, I mean, that's where we've got to start with that and embrace it. Embrace the fact that this is the new normal. I hate that phrase, but it is what it is. And if you get behind it, your sponsors and your vendors are going to believe in it because you do. So start that conversation early. You get comfortable with it, then you'll be able to really monetize it in a way to generate the revenue you would normally generate with a physical live event.
Sure.
The platform, the right platform, I think that's probably only 30-40% of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the rest of it is the experience. You want a partner that's there to ensure your success. and lining up, working with the presentation, lining up the presenters and speakers and getting all the content, making sure the video and the presentations are going to play seamlessly, making sure the audio is all working and that things are coordinated and rehearsed. And, one of the things that we provide is a high level of support the day of the event if somebody's have a problem logging into the platform or they have an issue, because honestly, there's so many variables that are out of everyone's hands, because you're relying upon everybody to join with different computers and different internet providers and all kinds of different things. So there's a lot of things that can be a problem. And you need to be able to support that. But I think you want to work with somebody that's not just saying, here's the platform. You want somebody that's going to help you understand the event. One of the discussions is, well, it used to be a 2-day event. Should it be? Or should it be 3 half days? Or will people sit in front of their computers for a whole day? I mean, there's a lot of discussions about that, and that's where you need a partner, I think, with some experience. Now, obviously, this webinar is not meant to be pushing our own platform, but we built this platform not to sell a platform, but because we needed something for our clients and their events that we could totally customize, was totally reliable. We could make it do anything we needed to have it do. And so you can get exactly the kind of experience you need for your event, whether it's the level of chat or the level of networking or any of that. We can custom build just about anything or plug in, third-party solutions into it. So that was really the motivation for us to develop the platform.
Sure. Well, those are all of our tips. Do you think we have enough time to run through if people haven't seen the platform?
Yeah, I think we can do that. If anybody's interested in that, they can, if they've seen it before, they can leave. This is an example, I think, of what you should look for in a platform. We did a lot of research on what our clients wanted and needed and what the competitive platforms were offering and what features we needed in there to ensure a good experience. I was going to say, Ryan, if people want to get a copy of these top 10 tips, what should they do to get that?
Yeah, so in the show notes, we can put a link to a PDF download that you guys can grab for free if you need to reference these or just put them on your desk or something, however you're going to utilize these tips to kind of navigate that. So we'll make sure we put that in there while George is getting this all queued up. But also, again, just a reminder, if anybody hasn't subscribe to the podcast. It's on all major platforms. It's Art of Marketing. You can just find it on any platform you're using, whether it's Anchor, iTunes, Stitcher, all those good things. So really happy everybody's been enjoying the podcast, the webinar series, and we can get a demo rolling if you'd like, George.
All right, here we go. I'll share my screen. Let me tell me if you don't see it. And guys, feel free to chime in as I walk through this. So basically, every event has a main landing page where it's, provide information to the visitors about what to expect. Here's the highlights of our event. Here's typically you have a main event hall where you might go. Providing a sponsors area, that can be a significant source of revenue, and you can have each one of these sponsors can link out to their own sponsor page or can link to their own websites, whatever their preference is. You can now have different tiers of sponsorship, so you might have 1 or 2 high level and then a second tier and a third tier, just depending on your event. Really, you can put whatever you want on this page. It's here, and this can change daily, here to promote what's going on, to let people know what to expect when they come. We talked a lot about the networking. And so here is our networking area. Everyone that registers then can, and this can be modified to, you don't have to accept it this way. It can be more or less, depending on what your needs are. Everyone that registered creates their own personal profile, and these can be filterable by what interests they have. So that way, if I'm interested in connecting people that I have a common interest with, it's easy to find those.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite part. Click on one of those, George, so we can show.
All right. And here's Aaron Barlow, or Aaron Barlow.
Aaron.
Aaron. A-Rod.
See, the power in that is if you take the time to fill out the about me, which is great, then somebody, as I'm trying to connect with somebody in my industry who's a prospect, I get to know a little bit about him. There's a connection. I can instantly send him a message. I can schedule a meeting. I've got all of his contact information. I can follow him on social media. I mean, quite frankly, in person, it's hard to get that much information when you've got 5-10 minutes of networking, so
Right.
I think this is a real powerful section.
And this is nice, just like I said, for tracking people down. If you're in a breakout and you meet Aaron or whatever his name is, and you never got his name, but you saw his face, you can cross-reference it. Or, if you didn't have time to connect with him and he had a really good point or had some resources, you can find him later. It's just like having a little string on everybody so you can track him down if you need to. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I really like that.
And we can have as much information or as little. Some people may not want to share email or office or any of that. So that's totally configurable. You also have the ability, if I wanted to schedule a meeting some other time, we can set that up too, and integrate with their calendar as well. Potentially. And here's their social media information, which is always good. Aaron may even have a little bit in here about how to pronounce his name, which would be helpful when you meet in person.
Critical information.
Excuse me. And all these are customizable as well. And for example, Laura has a Twitter account. So that's the networking. It's also possible to set up a group chat room where you could just drop in and everybody could chat about whatever topic. We've all seen that, so we don't have that demonstrated here, but kind of during the lunchtime or between meetings or whenever you're just bored and want to just go in and chat about, oh, wasn't that a great presentation? What did you think of that? What should I go see? That can be done. Every place has a, let me see, I need to log in here real quick. There's an example, login, registration, the main hall. There are no events at this time, so I can go back to the lobby. I was going to say, let me log out of here real quick and get the features. The main hall is basically can be set up in one of two ways, a webinar format or a meeting format. A webinar format is when you would have a panelist, just like this is. You'd have 3 or 4 presenters or 5, 6, and the audience would be invisible. In a meeting format, you would have potentially everybody have a video window, or everybody has a chance to speak. Here, if you're in the audience, to speak, you have to be promoted. So that's the difference between them. Pretty much all the platforms have the same features: high def video, ability to record meetings, the ability to broadcast live, also to Facebook or YouTube can be important for some of the events, also to build your audience. Ability to share screens, which we're doing now. Ability to control the layouts, the presentation. That's a big part of it that we're working on improving that even more, where we can have total control of the event and the speakers and the presentation and really make that smooth. What you'd expect from a polished presentation and not just from a meeting. Q&A is obviously a big feature. ability to do polls is fun. Actually, those can be trivia polls, which just kind of help people keep engaged.
Yeah, I like that. And when we sampled that in polling, I like it because it's live. So there's movement as people are responding to questions and answers. And that's a good way to make sure they're not watching TV.
Well, yeah, and actually they're kind of fun if there's a trivia question every, 20 minutes or something. It's like,
Sure.
okay. Whiteboard is a possibility, content library, breakout rooms. Excuse me. Breakout room, it happens in a meeting scenario where we might have 100 people in a meeting and we want to break out into smaller room discussions. So that's kind of a nice feature, and then you can rejoin back in the main meeting hall. Let's go talk about the vendors area, which is really important for monetizing your event. Here again, the vendors, and this can look however you want. This is a nice clean look where they can do their logo and you can have some information about them. You can also filter them by what category you're interested in. And then if I want to learn more about Audio Tune, they can have their own personal page. They can put what content is relevant to what they're doing on there. It can be videos, it can be text, photos, downloadable PDFs, whatever you want. You can also have the ability to chat with them if their booth is manned. We could schedule a meeting if it's not manned. I'd like to talk to you, Shannon. Is Wednesday at 1 o'clock work for you? We could do a video chat. So there's a lot of flexibility there. This is an example of just a flat basic 2D booth. It's got a lot of features to it. I'm just waiting for this to load. Some of the chat could be, there's several different levels that this could go. This could be, you could have a chat bot that answers the most common questions. It could be like a help desk sort of chat where, somebody will be with you in 2 minutes if you want to hang on, or if you'd like to go up, just schedule a meeting time with us and we can meet with you later. Or you could elevate it. It could be a video chat. Let's say I have a product where I'd like to be able to demonstrate and show you some of the features like this fine water bottle. I could do that during a video chat. We also have a couple of other ways that you can upsell the vendor booth. We have 2D booths. We have several templates that you can use and customize. This one's obviously with ours. Some people like the sort of simulating more the live event feeling with a registration desk and a hall. It's kind of fun. And these can be all customized and they can have pop-ups, whatever bit of content you'd like to show. And of course, this is all trackable through analytics as to what people are interested in. Here's digital marketing, Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I'm interested in that. I can watch a video. I can link back to the website. So there's a lot of flexibility, and the environment, the image out the window can be changed to something that's appropriate for your event. This is a nice, more park or ag setting. And so we have several of those as pre-done templates. So those are affordable to do. They give you a nice level of interactivity and it's a little bit more fun. We can also go to more of a custom-built 3D booth. And this is, the reason here to go is the engagement. And I think, Shannon, you said how much you like kind of clicking around and playing around in these. And so here's an example of a 3D booth. This was created from just a simple model, a booth model. And actually we're working with a few clients that already had their 3D booth and they just wanted to recreate it in the virtual space. And the environment can be a virtual trade show. It can really be anything. And then you can click. That one takes us to our Instagram page. I can go in and click on
And George
items.
had a question too. With
Sure.
these, it would just be the one standalone booth, or could you have like multiple lined up that people can browse, similar to an actual trade show?
The way this is, you could build that. What you'd do is you'd have a vendor page that showed all the booths, and then as you clicked into a booth, you'd go to an experience like this.
Sure.
Conceivably, you could build them all the same, but that's very difficult. But you could simulate that feeling of an actual exhibit hall with the different booths positioned around. This gives you the ability to add some just information. You can customize all of that stuff. Here's the location where we're actually integrating with Google Maps. So you can see right where we're at, or right where your office is at. You can have contact information. Thank you, Shannon. You can have floor plans. So if it's a complicated booth, you can figure out how to navigate it. So, that's an opportunity to upsell again from just the basic booth to a 2D booth to a 3D booth. And we're finding that we're actually building a couple of these for people that will use at multiple virtual events like this. So once they've invested in their booth, they can kind of take it with them, so to speak, and use them on some other platforms. And down here at the corner on all these pages, you can have or have not technical support. So if I'm having a problem logging in or navigating, or my computer's acting up, I can get help during the actual event that would be manned. I think that's all. Is there
No,
anything
let's
else on
just
that?
show the meeting rooms just real quick, George. I think that's
Oh,
the only
that's
thing we
right. I'm
missed.
sorry. You're right. And these would be like educational sessions that you might want to attend at room 102. Here's the video production points of success. And at 1 o'clock, we can also build a customized agenda for you. So Shannon, you could see on your agenda, you'd signed up for this at 1. And here's the link to take you right to that presentation. And there's obviously, since it's virtual, there's no limit to the number that you can have of these, and these can be dynamic and change day by day.
I think the last thing too is just the overall look and feel. So obviously we've got applied art up in the corner, and the
Yes.
graphics behind kind of reflect what we do. But like I'm thinking about a convention and visitors bureau, or we're talking to chambers of commerce, and want everybody to realize that it'll look and feel like you want it to. We'll use your graphics for that. This just looks like us.
Yeah, it will totally customizable to be entirely your meeting, your colors, your graphics, your branding, your imagery. This all can be customized to what's appropriate for you. That's a very good point, Shannon. And here again, we talked quite a bit about the platform, and you can see why it was important for us to build this custom, so we can customize it and we can add features for particular events and vendors, and subtract things that people are not using. But there again, going back to what we were saying, this is probably only 30 to 40% of the experience. The rest of it is having good content, having really polished presentations, having your speakers properly coached on and having all your content lined up and tested, and make sure that it works and it's going to play. And then helping people. Invariably, people have problems connecting. It doesn't matter if it's Zoom, GoToMeeting, or whatever. And they can drop out. So it's having a high level of support. I spent more time talking about that than I intended, but there's quite a bit there.
Sure. Well, hopefully everybody got some value out of just kind of learning about some of the do's and don'ts of virtual events and all those types of things. If you guys do have any questions, make sure to reach out to us, but we will make sure to link up in the show notes and the description boxes of the podcast some resources you can have, the link to our demo site, and then also a way if you need to just talk about is my event ready to go virtual? We'll also have some references for you down there. So thanks again, everybody who joined the webinar and the podcast today, and we'll see you guys next week.